everyone, in this module I will be discussing personal protective equipment, or PPE as most people refer to it as, including what PPE is available to you for radiological responses and how to don and doff your PPE. So in a radiological emergency, most everyone will be provided with a PPE kit. These kits include overalls, booties, rubber shoe covers, hood, inner gloves, and outer gloves. Unfortunately, these kits do not include two of the most important pieces of PPE, which are eye protection and a mask. So these two things will also be provided to you. With a radiological event, the most important things to protect are your eyes and airway. So if you don't have any other PPE available to you, at the very least, you should need a face mask and some sort of eye protection. In the event of a radiological emergency, there are several things to remember. First, protective clothing does not generally protect against radiation dose, but it can help with contamination prevention. Anytime you enter a contaminated area, you must wear protective clothing and wear it correctly, which we will go over here in a few minutes. When you go into a contaminated area, do not wear any personal items that you do not want to lose, such as jewelry or your cell phones. These items may not be able to be decontaminated if they become contaminated. Also, make sure you are wearing any essential equipment over your PPE so it is easily accessible. This kind of includes radios. Lastly, if at any time your PPE becomes torn, wet, or rendered ineffective, immediately leave that contaminated area and get yourself monitored for contamination. So now let's discuss how to don or put on your PPE. This will be demonstrated to you during our hands-on training at a later time. So right now we're just going to go over the step-by-step. So in your PPE kit, you will be provided with a written step-by-step guide on how to put everything on and how to take it off to ensure that you are doing so properly. So the first thing to remember when putting on your PPE is to always try to use the buddy system. This will help ensure your PPE is put on correctly and the PPE isn't damaged while you're donning. When you're ready to put on the PPE, make sure you thoroughly inspect each piece of PPE to ensure it is the correct size and it is undamaged. Also, make sure to remove all personal items that you do not want to get contaminated. So the first item you will put on is your booties. Then you'll put on the suit and make sure that it is zipped up all the way to the top and that your booties are on the inside of the suit. It is a good idea to tape around the legs of your suit to ensure that contamination does not go through the seam between your booties and your suit. Also, whenever you are taping off any part of PPE, always remember to leave a folded tab at the end of the tape. This will make the doffing process much easier. Once you have done so, put on the yellow rubber shoe covers over your booties, and then put on the cotton glove liners. The next step is to put on your first pair of rubber gloves. Make sure that you pull your sleeves all the way over the wrist of the gloves and then tape around the edges. It is a good idea to place an X on the top of each of these pair of gloves. When you're working, you'll most likely need to change gloves several times. So putting the X is a visual reminder that that is your innermost pair of gloves. Next, put on the second pair of gloves. This pair does not need to be taped since you will likely be changing them while working. After you have put on your gloves, put on your airway and eye protection. So then you are going to put on your hood. It is a good idea for anyone with long hair to pull it back so it stays inside the hood and doesn't risk getting contaminated. Next, you will put on any essential equipment such as radios. And then stretch and make sure that everything fits correctly, nothing's tearing. That way nothing gets in as far as contamination. Write your name and position on the front and back of your suit. This is important because everyone will look the same while wearing all the PPE, so by placing your name on the outside, it will be easier for everyone to identify you. Lastly, put on your dosimeter. Remember to place them somewhere between your neck and waist, on the front of your body, and with the OSLD's TEMA sticker facing out. So once you have correctly donned your PPE, you will continue your work. When you are done working, you will go through the decontamination process, which will include doffing your PPE and be monitored to make sure you are not contaminated. So once you're done working, you will begin the decontamination process and be ready to doff or take off your PPE. Again, this process will be demonstrated during our hands-on training at a later time. Two things to remember with this is to not remove your PPE until told to do so in a controlled decontamination area. Also, make sure you're always following the directions of the decontamination personnel. So step one is to dry brush the exterior of your PPE to remove any loose particles. Remember that you cannot see the radioactive particles, so it is very important that you be careful when removing your PPE so you don't stir up any of those contaminated particles into the air, which can be inhaled and cause some internal contamination. The next step will be to remove all of your equipment. Any equipment that went into the contamination area with you will need to be monitored and decontaminated before it can be used again. Next, you will need to remove and turn in all dosimetry. Make sure you complete that green TEMA form. This is discussed back in the dosimetry module, so if you have any questions about that, go back to that module. Then you're going to remove the yellow shoe covers and remove the tape around the legs and wrists. Next, you will remove the outer layer of gloves. Try not to touch anything that may be potentially contaminated. So with your innermost layer of gloves, you're going to grasp the inside of the collar of your suit and then pull it apart to unzip it completely. You will then remove the hood by grasping the inside of the hood and rolling it inside out away from your skin. And then you're going to pull it away from your face. Next, you will hold the inside of the suit and pull the suit off on your shoulders. Make sure that as you're taking the suit off, you're going to turn it inside out, making sure that the outside of the suit does not touch your skin. So the next step is to remove your airway and eye protection. Remember not to get into those particles on your face, so kind of hold your breath or close your eyes whenever you're taking those off. Then you can remove your paper booties. As you do this, you will be directed to stand at the line between the contaminated and clean area and asked to step back into the clean area as you take off each of your booties. This will help ensure that your feet do not become contaminated. The last thing you will take off is that innermost layer of gloves and the glove liners. Once all of your PPE is removed, you will be asked to shower, making sure that when you shower, you are cleaning under your fingernails, cleaning your hair, kind of washing everything down. Also make sure that you are clearing your airways by blowing your nose and clearing your throat. So I'm sure that the donning and doffing process will make a lot more sense once we can do so in a hands-on training. But if you do have any questions over this module, please feel free to contact me at the number shown on the screen. Thank you all.